Welcome to Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine. Our musical selection for today is What's Love Got to Do With It by our very own Tina Turner. You must understand, with the touch of your hand makes my pulse react. And it's only a thrill of boy meeting girl, opposites attract. It's physical, only logical. But whatever the reason, it means more than that. Oh, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? May seem to you that I'm acting confused when you're close to me. If I tend to look dazed, I read it some ways. I got cause to be, and there's a name for it. There's a phrase that fits. But whatever the reason, it means more than that. Whoa, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Oh. I've been taking on a new direction, and I have to say, now I've been thinking about my own protection. It scares me to feel this way. Whoa, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Ooh, got to do with it. Sweet old skin ocean. What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart? Heart can be broken. Second motion. What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Ooh. Second-hand emotion.
Yes! Woohoo! Okay, I'm sitting there like I'm getting my groove on. I'm just like rocking with Lynette for this one. Hey fam, I am Alexis Roan, aka Alexis Grace, founder of Truth Meets Story LLC, expanding empathy one story at a time, and your host of Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers. Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers is a faith and adult storytelling series. By faith, I mean we explore the mystery of how God shows up or is perceived absent in our lived reality. And we do this exploration by adult storytelling. Now, by adult storytelling, I mean stories that are told by adults, to adults, for people with a developed adult context. And for that reason, no apologies are ever issued for how we show up in this space. We assume that everyone who's here can handle what it means to be here. 7-year-olds have a story time, and now so do adults. You're welcome. Listen, I am so excited about today, but before I get into that, let me go ahead and just stir up some good trouble. I was talking to my mom a couple of hours ago after I'd finished a guilt, shame, and storytelling workshop with a group of clergy in Pennsylvania. It was a very powerful workshop. It's one of my absolute favorites. And after the workshop, I was, giving mom, just kind of the recap. She's a proud mama. And then I said, oh, well, listen, I'm going to, go and grab something to eat before Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers. And she says, look, do not call me out today. You always calling me out. I was like, well, I don't ever say your name. I just say, hey, like I'm just talking about my mama. So for everybody who does not know my mama, her name is Emma Means. She's on the line right now. And so just mama, she said she don't hang. I did that, but like, she'll be all right. If she hangs up, she'll watch the replay. I promise you she's gonna want to do this one, because the way I show up in the world is through the power of story and creating access for everyone to do that. And there are so many amazing stories that must happen, and the ones that are coming through this space are most definitely changing the game. We're not playing with folks. We're getting some things handled. I have been very heavy this week, probably towards the latter part of the week, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Last week, I was in Atlanta, and I broadcast live from my satellite studio in Atlanta, aka it also doubles as my sister friend Galia's basement. Hey, G, if you're watching. And so I was in Atlanta for a week, and then I, returned to Raleigh. And it was kind of, this has been an interesting week trying to, get my bearings, straight after having been, away from my living arrangement for a week. It took a minute. I was trying to figure out, maybe that's what it was taking, maybe that's what I was having a difficult time adjusting to. And but by the end of the week, it just got heavier and heavier. I was like, okay, I'm settled. I'm back. My clothes are washed. And I've done my full moon exercise. We had a beautiful full moon on the 20th on Wednesday. So it's like I did all of that. I got great pictures, and I like I'm centered. Like, what devil is going on? What is this? What is this? And as I was setting up the studio yesterday, it occurred to me, my issue was that I had made a very bold decision to show up full on, practice fidelity to who I am, and then to bring other folks along with me, and then to show other folks how to get it done. I am convinced in the power of words, the power of story, how it becomes this great leveler, and how the only one who is upset behind me trying to create space for all of us to tell our stories is the spirit that operates against the common good. I believe that we are good, and we are showing up, and we are doing good things, and we are plugging in, and we're not waiting for permission, and we're not waiting for laws to be done. We're like, listen, what does this moment call for? That's what we're going to do. One of the beautiful memories that came up this week was with a school in Louisiana. These are a group of dads. See, Mama, I hope you're on the line so you can catch this beautiful story. This is a group of fathers in Louisiana, and they're called Dads on Duty. So what had happened was at the high school where their children attended, 23 kids were arrested for fights and craziness within 2 days at the school in Louisiana. And they didn't wait for anybody to give them permission. They're like, our children are here. They acting up. We don't know what's going on. We about to come here and show them like what it's going to really do. And according to the news source, CNN news source, those dads showed up, and not one fight has broken out. Not one. I am encouraged when people see a need and they don't wait for somebody else to try to figure out how to solve it. They're like, I am the solution. And then they start recruiting other folks to posit as the solution with them. So blessings to the dads on duty and to everyone who is figuring out exactly how to plug in. So I was super, super excited about that this week. And again, like I said, just folks are just doing what they got to do. And that's what the heaviness was for me. It was like, I'm doing what I got to do. There is spiritual warfare that's happening. I recognized what it was. I went to my knees. I shared. I called it out because I think I shared with you a couple of weeks ago a good word that my therapist told me. She said three things the enemy does not want you, does not bank on. Um, the enemy is always going to be a distraction, but three things the enemy never banks on. Number one, never banks on being found out. Two, never banks on being called out. Number three, never banks on us bringing God with us. What? What? Not showing up empty handed, not going to be silent. And I'm not going to have all these solutions and then keep them to myself. And there are a lot of solutions that we have, and we keep them to ourselves because we are ashamed of how we came across those solutions. Those solutions are also called stories. Today is a very special Jesus Jazz and Dessert wine at Vespers for me. It strikes at a formative situation, something that happened very early, in my childhood. My mom and I have talked about this, but I don't think that she knows this particular situation. When I went to college, I was the second in my family to attend college, the first to graduate. The very first one to attend college was my mom, and then she got pregnant with me, and then she, went, got married and went into the workforce. So when I get to college, all of these hopes, all of these dreams, everyone is like, yes, yes, Lex is gonna do it. Lex is gonna do it, and I was getting it in, and I started dating a student athlete, and everything was cool because I got into the games for free. He was on scholarship, and so the money that his parents sent him, his spending money, like that was like big dollars. So we're like college students, we're eating at all the fancy restaurants. So anybody like who I dated since then, they're like, "How did she get so fancy?" Okay, it started early. I was like, "Listen, I'm just not gonna do any kind of thing." But all that fancy dining, fine dining started with him. Good time doing all of that. He drove a sports car, and he would give me the keys and say, "Here, go do your thing or whatever." So it was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool or whatever." The only problem was that when things got crazy between us, they went spot on crazy. Uh, and one time, the campus police got involved. And whenever the campus police get involved, they report you to the dean of students. Well, it just so happened that the dean of students at the University of Texas in the late 80s was this really cool guy named Curtis, brother. And this predominantly white institution, the dean of students is a brother. And, he pulls us into his office. We each have a meeting. We have to meet with him separately. And in my meeting, he's talking about, like, when is your birthday? Oh, you're a Scorpio. I dated this girl. She was a Scorpio. Y'all are very passionate. I know y'all going to go down to the mat and da da da. I was like, yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. He was like, I get all of that. I get it. He's like, but look, you came here to get your education. So I'm going to for real need you to like figure out what you and old boy need to do in order for you to stay on task. And then I left his office and I was like, oh, okay, Curtis is cool. Curtis is cool. And then once again, me and the boyfriend, we have another altercation on campus. And campus police have to get involved. And this time, when we report to the dean of students, report to Curtis's office, he ain't cool no more. I went in that office and he had a very different look on his face. He was very stern. He was very professional. And I'm like, wait, what happened? I thought we were cool. Wait, what's going on here? He didn't flip the script. And he said to me very calmly, Alexis, I have met with, and he names the boyfriend. And he says, and I have told him that 2 times y'all have been in here. If you come in here a third time, you are immediately expelled from campus, from the football team. You lose your scholarship. Now, you might end up with a college degree, but it won't be from the University of Texas if I see you in here one more time. And I was like, yeah, baby, he stuck it to him. And then he says to me, now here's what I'm going to say to you. Alexis, you have been in here 2 times with this foolishness. If you come into my office one more time, you will be immediately expelled. You will lose your scholarship. And you may graduate from college, but it won't be from the University of Texas at Austin. Wait, what? Wait, how am I going to tell my mama? You don't have to tell your mama anything. If you fade to black with this madness, just let it go. Shit. On that day, it was a wrap because this guy was never anyone that I was like all seriously in love with. I mean, he was just kind of somebody like, he's on campus and, got the cool car and the fancy dinners and we kicking it. Got the good football seats, to the game. Now they weren't having a winning, season most of the time that I was there. So, it wasn't like I had this like, oh, let me like this whole burnt orange fever. Like that was never my thing. And I was about to lose the whole bag. And that was all it took for me. I was like, I'm not serious about him. This is not a real thing. I am playing, but recess is over. I canceled that relationship. And a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, I graduated with a degree in journalism with an emphasis on public relations from the University of Texas at Austin. I mean, I got my credentials and got the family legacy, and we've had quite a few folks come after me who've graduated from college. So I was able to get it done. I was able to get it done, and I was very excited about that. But it occurred to me how often we get to college, we are in these relationships, and I love the love stories where they live happily ever after. But then there are other times where you recognize that people love to talk about the Lord is good all the time, and all the time the Lord is good. But I think that there are situations, particularly when we are coming into our own as adults, where we recognize that, yes, the Lord is good, but above all, the Lord is present. And that's the good news. But sometimes that presence and that goodness looks way, way different. That is how I want to set up the story that you are about to hear. When I first heard this story, I was flabbergasted, and it has layers upon layers upon layers. And I am excited tonight to just give you a taste of the piece that I heard in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The storyteller has agreed to come on and to um, break it down like a fraction for us. What does it look like when God is present but perceived absent, and it just all feels wrong? With that, please welcome Miss Aya Wallace as she dresses her truth in story.
So it was on campus for me also when I was standing in the office of the Temple campus police station, and I had a vanilla folder full of pictures and phone logs. The phone logs were typically 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the pictures were of me, but they were on these fake Black Planet accounts, and they had very vulgar, descriptions of me. And I took this to the Temple campus police because this is what I was getting from a stalker, and that stalker was my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend. And I remember sitting on the bed in my dorm room, and my boyfriend and I were talking about, what the police were and could not and basically did not do. to help protect me in this situation. But we were sitting there talking, and I remember my boyfriend saying, "Hey, you're going through a lot with this relationship. I can totally understand if you don't want to be with me." And I was sitting on my roommate's bed, and I remember looking at the computer because also there had been a fake account that had been communicating with me, and apparently this was the ex-girlfriend trying to get me in a bind, I guess. But I was looking at the computer and I was on the phone and I said, no, you this relationship, we can work this out. God has put us together and we're going to work this out. And that's what relationships are all about. They are about working things out. And that's what we're going to do. And in my mind, that's what I had, because when I first met this man on AOL Instant Messenger my freshman year, I saw a picture of him. And I remember looking at the picture and just thinking, this man right here is going to be the one. Like, if he's not the one, he's definitely going to be a huge part of my life. And I just sensed that. And I felt that. And I was like, definitely, definitely spirit talking here. So my freshman year, basically all we did was talk about relationships I had with other guys. So I would instant message him and say, hey, I got this going on with this guy. What do you think about this? And he would give me advice. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's perfect. Or, oh, no, but okay, I'll try it. And that's just how our relationship was. And maybe towards the end of my sophomore year, starting into my junior year, yeah, that was Christmas. I went home. And I was sitting there in the house, frustrated because I was in this house with my stepfather and my mother, and my stepfather had just really hit a nerve for me. And I just really needed to get out of the house. Like, I just needed a moment. And got on the computer, and there was my friend at the time. And I was like, hey, I got this going on. And he was like, hey, why don't you meet up? We'll meet up in Greensboro. And I was like, sounds like a great idea. And so I hop in the car, drive to Greensboro. And Greensboro at the time seemed like a 3-hour drive. It's like an hour and a half from Raleigh. But then as a sort of new driver, it was like a 3-hour like trip for me. But I get there and I get to Wendy's, and this gentleman comes out of the door. He comes to open my door, and he is tall and lanky and a little bit more nerdy than what I had seen in that original picture. But he was still a handsome young man. And he opens the door and he's like, well, hey, what we're going to do. So we decided to just get in the car and figure it out. And when I get in the car, homeboy is playing John P. Key. And I'm like, see, that's what I knew it. I knew it. A good Christian man listening to John P. Key. And he was talking about how, he works with John P. Key. He sings with John P. Key. He plays, the drums with John P. Key. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But come on, y'all. Everybody that lives in Charlotte has either sung, played drums or something with John P. Key. But we get in the car, we listen to John P. Key, and we decide to go to the movie theater. Well, when we get to the movie theater is closed. And so we've like walked up to the movie theater and we see that it's closed. And as we're walking back to the car, he just kind of swoops me up. And he basically starts singing. Dun 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 dun, and I'm just like, oh my gosh! Like, he is like in love with me. Like, this is great. He's thinking about marriage. He's a good Christian man, and he's thinking about marriage. This is gonna be great. But one of the things that I learned later on is that when a man or a woman has this quickening of affection for a person, it can be a red flag for someone who is an emotional and psychological abuser. But at that time, I thought that this was the one. He's playing John B. Key. He's a good Christian man, and he's ready for marriage. And that's what you go to college for. But so we start dating, and along the line, ta-da, I am pregnant. And I know that we conceived between like July 4th and July 7th because I remember writing in a journal, woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. God said, get up and write. And I wrote, what is inside of you will be great. And I thought he's definitely talking about my gifts and talents. Lo and behold, it was a baby boy. So I have this news that I'm pregnant. And so I tell my boyfriend, and a week later I get a phone call and he says, yeah, we're not going to be dating. And I was devastated because here I am pregnant. I'm in college, and here you are telling me that you don't want to date. Like, what have I done? And so I go through that 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, he gives me a call back and he says, nope, I take it back. We're gonna work this out. We're gonna date. We're gonna be together. Made me happy because I get to have my family. This is my family that I am going to have. And then 5 months later, I get a call and he tells me that he doesn't want to date anymore. Well, at this point, I'm beyond the ups and the downs of dating and not dating. And at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to have the child. So what we're going to do is we're going to be good co-parents. We're going to work this out. We're going to be friends. We're going to make sure that this child is living in an environment where there's not any tension or any problems or issues. So we're going to do this as friends. And that's how I wanted this to be. And in fact, I remember one time he traveled 8 hours to come to Philly. And he says, I'll go with you to your doctor's appointment. So he goes with me to my doctor's appointment. We come home and we're having a good time watching my favorite movie show, which is Pirates of the Caribbean. And at that point, I was like, great, this is wonderful. Like, we can be friends and we can have this child together and do this. And even when my child was born, that was my whole deal. Like, when we have birthdays, we are coming together as a united front, even friends and family. If it's Blue's Clues, we are wearing blue and green, and everybody's going to be together on this. And we're going to show the world that, we can do this, and we're great co-parents, and we're going to do this together. Superman, I remember even one time we went to go take pictures for that. And the Kmart guy, we took pictures at Kmart, was like, hey, why don't y'all take a picture together? And fine, because we're going to show everyone that we can do this, that we're going to co-parent and do this well. And that was just how I felt things should be. And that's how they were. I decided then to follow my dreams and become a dance educator. And York University had just developed this new program, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so I decided I'm going to go, and I decided I'm going to take my child with me because I'm his mom and he needs his mom. But his dad had a different idea, and his idea was, hey, he can stay with me. And at the time I was like, no, but then I realized it was best for my son because he would be around family and friends. He would be with his dad. My mom was there to help. So I just felt like, okay, this is better situation than my son just coming with me. So that night I started to feel my body do a decline. I have real when I develop anxiety or when I get anxiety, my body reacts. And so I could feel my potassium getting low. So I was like, okay, I got to calm myself down before my potassium gets too low, because when my potassium gets too low, I'm going to be in the hospital. So I get in the bathtub and I try and cool myself down, try and calm myself down. And I realize, okay, Aya, you're not doing too well with this. So you need to call somebody and have them take you to the emergency room. So I call my son's dad and I say, hey, I'm not feeling well and I need to go to the emergency room. And just as cold as that water was that I was sitting in, and I've been sitting in for a while, he basically tells me, no, I'm not taking you. And so I was just like, wait a second, like, why wouldn't you take me to the hospital? But I call my pastor, he calls the deaconess, and the deaconess comes to help me. She picks me up and she takes me to the hospital, and I'm there. But it bothered me that I just didn't get the help that I needed from my son's father. It also bothered me that the first week of my time away from my son, I felt I'm present with my son 110%. He gets all of me. And so when I leave and he's with you, he's supposed to get all of you. And that weekend, my son's father decided that he was going to take him and a prospect, I'll call her a prospect, um, to the zoo. And I was just like, no, like our son needs just you. He just needs you. And I could sense from that conversation that he felt that I was more concerned about the prospect than I was about the relationship or the time spent between my son and him, which was not the case. And I also felt that because not too long ago after that, I'm at McDonald's and about to leave out, and I get a phone call. Hey, hey. And he's like, I got some bad news for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my son? And he's like, yeah, so me and the girl, we're going to be dating. And I'm like, well, why is that bad news? Like, that's like the greatest thing. Like, I'm happy for you. That's great. I have no issues, no qualms, no problems. And, even then it was just like, why would you think that something is wrong? Or why would that be a bad thing? And throughout my time while I was in New York, there was always like some tension and some pull. And there were some times where I didn't know when things were going on with my son. And, it would be things I'd be like, oh, these are things that you can share, because I'm his mom. And it would be good to know these things. But there was always just a push and a pull and a push and a pull, and never just calm. I graduate and I go home after 2 years. And I get home and it seems like a bomb has just dropped. And everything there's so much tension and so much hurt and just words of just downing words and problems left and right and issues, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I just felt like my rights as a mother were like just slowly dissipating. And so there was one incident where at this point I was like, I can't take this anymore. I can't, like, we've gone through so much and done, and so much has happened, but this right here, I can't take it. And basically with the incident, the police had told me, hey, like, we can't do anything unless there's an order. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to court and I'm going to make sure that there's an order in place so that, there's a set schedule and everything that we do is set and in order. And I remember getting a text message, I guess, when he found out that we were going to court, saying, hey, if you take me to court, like, I'm going to make your life a living hell. I didn't. Yeah. Okay, fine. Well, we're still going to court because we need a schedule. And I will say that, even then, like just trying to stay in it and say, hey, we can work this out, it just basically ended there. And all the push more so than the pull, the dominance, I decided I need to save my energy. So all of this that you do, I'm just going to take that and sweep it under the rug. I'm going to put it in a file because I'm not going to be able to like continue to deal with that. Like I need to be able to be free and to be a mom and not have to worry about all the things that you're doing that's causing pain and strife and worry and anxiety. Like I need my energy. So whenever something happens, all right, it's happened. Let me just sweep it under the rug. Oh, okay. All right. Sweep it under the rug. That one hurt, but all right. Sweep it under the rug. And I continue to do that over and over and over again until the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, 2013. I get off early. Our job lets us off around 3:00, but I stay till around 4. And I get a message. Hey, I still have 2 hours with our son before I get him. And I was like, okay, well, you have those 2 hours, but he needs to be home by 6. And so confirmed that he'll be home by 6. Go home, actually go, do some things for Thanksgiving, that last minute shopping from Honey Baked Ham and Harris Teeter and everywhere else that you can get last minute things, and helping my mom prepare because our family was coming to Thanksgiving dinner the next day. And so we had to prepare for that. And I'm at the house, and come 6:00, 6:01, 6:02, 6:03, 6:04, and so on and so on and so on. And I realized that my son is not home at the time that he's supposed to be. And so I send a message and I say, hey, are you bringing him home? And I get a message back, hey, no, you can come pick him up. So I said, oh, Mom, he wants us to come pick my son up from his house. And by the way, when he married his wife, they moved 2 minutes down the street from my mom's house where I live. So it wasn't far. And we hop in the car. My mom decides to come with me because we're going to get some more last minute things for Thanksgiving. And then also when I was going to go pick up my son, we were going to go to the store to get like some goodies and some treats because we were going to give them to like all the kids for Thanksgiving. And so I was really excited about that, more so than getting last minute things for Thanksgiving dinner. But we drive and we get to my son's father's house. And I send a message and say, hey, I'm here. And my mother and I, we wait and we wait and we wait and we wait. And my mom says, all right, well, I'll get out the car and see what's going on. So my mom gets out, she walks to the door, she rings the doorbell, and the wife comes to the door. And my mom is, talking, and then she comes back, she gets in the car and she says, your son will be out in a couple of minutes. I was like, okay. So we continue to wait and we wait and we wait. And at this point, I'm like, all right, we waited long enough. It's time for me to get out of the car and see what's going on. So I walk to the door, ring the doorbell, and the wife comes to the door, but this time she has the order in her hand, flipping pages. And I'm telling her, look, like, this is my Thanksgiving time. He had his Thanksgiving time. So it's mine now. So this is how it works. This is how it's been working for 3 years now. And she's still flipping the pages. And I'm telling myself, Aya, calm yourself down. Chill. keep sweeping, keep sweeping, keep sweeping. And I could feel like the boil at the bottom of the volcano. And I was just telling just myself, just come on, just calm down. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to get your son. You're going to go to the store. Like, I'm just really just trying to talk myself through what the future, the happy future of this is going to be, the result of this is going to be. And as I'm standing there and she's flipping through the order, I see his father come around the corner. And in that moment, my middle name is Christina, and I think she's the feisty one. That's the feisty characteristic of me. And Christina was like, no, like, you're going to have your wife stand here talking to me, but you're going to be back there peeking around the corner? Oh, no, like, we're done. I'm done sweeping under the rug. I'm done filing the papers. I'm done with your passive aggressive behavior. I am done. I am finished. I am no longer going to take this. Like, I can't. There's just no possibility. And as I'm sitting there realizing what's going on, it's like this outer body experience. You know, they say when people pass away and they come back to life, they imagine or they see themselves on the table and they're above and watching what's happening below. That's what it was for me. Aya had lifted, Christina was taking over. Christina runs straight through the door. And I mean, I just go straight through the door. I didn't care about the wife. I didn't care about the dad. I am going to get my son. And I knew he was upstairs. So I get maybe 2 steps up. And as soon as I get 2 steps up, his dad grabs me from the back and pulls me and is pulling me through the house. And they're talking about they're going to call the police. Call the police because we got an order. And this is what the order was for. Because we're going to take care of this. And if I'm going to get my son, call the police, tell them to come because this is what's going to happen. So he's pulling me and pulling me and pulling me. And my mom is, there. And we start, I'm fighting. I am fighting for getting my son. And we roll down the hill. And I remember he kind of just pops up. And I, all right, I'm popping up too because I'm coming for you. I am coming for the 6'3", 250-pound man. And I am 5'4", at the most 135 at the time. And I am coming for you because I'm coming to get my son. I am tired of this, of being put down, of having to sweep things under the rugs. The brooms are broken. We're done. And so I am fighting and fighting. And I remember, well, we come to find out, I don't remember this, but come to find out because it appears several times throughout life. But my mom had apparently grabbed his hair and he had these long locks. And my mom had apparently grabbed his hair to get him off of me and had pulled about 3 dreads out of his hair. 3 dreads. And we're still fighting. And I am determined to get my son. I remember we were in the bushes. We were on the sidewalk. We were in the grass. And then finally, at one point, he grabs me. My son's father grabs me and he takes my thumb and he's pushing it back towards my elbow. And it is the most painful WWE. I'm sure that's where you have probably seen it. But it's this move, and I was in so much pain. And as I was sitting there screaming, my son had come out, and he is crying, "Dad, let him go, let her go, let her go." And he is just crying and begging for his dad to let me go. And his dad looks at him and says, "I'm not letting your mother go until you walk back inside that door." And I remember thinking, don't go inside the door because you're outside and you're out where I need you. Like, we can get you, we can take you home and we can be done with this. Don't go inside the door. Like, I can handle this pain. Like, I got this. I can figure out a way to get out of this. And my son decides, I'm going back inside the door. And as soon as my son goes back inside the house, his dad lets go and they walk back inside the door, him and his wife. And I remember just like sitting and just, I mean, my whole body was just limp. And I was on my knees and I was on the floor on the grass and I was just wailing and crying and determined to just cry out loud. I wanted the neighbors to hear. I wanted the world to hear. I am like in pain. I am hurting. I don't have my son. And this is how things keep happening. In fact, I want the world to know because I tried. I tried to tell you. I went to social services after one incident. I went to Interact one time to talk to counselor to just try and work things out and figure out, solutions. And I just always felt like, this is your 9 to 5, and in fact, when I was talking to the social worker had come into the house and she was sitting at the kitchen table. And I just felt like I'm your 4:55 of your 5 o'clock, clock out. And this is just, any old day, any other client, and you're just trying to get through this day. And, she was saying, well, there's nothing we can do because there's no physical scars. And I was sitting there going, but Interact said that, it's the emotional, it's the psychological abuse that's worse than the physical, because the physical can go away, but you always hold that emotional and psychological stain and hurt. So I'm like, it doesn't make sense. How could you say that? But I do remember telling her, oh, this is going to get bad. This is going to get bad. And it did that night. And so the police come and, in my mind, I'm like, okay, things are about to take care of because we got this order. And the police go into the house and they talk, and then they come out and they talk to my mom and I. And then all of a sudden, my mom and I are being read our rights. And so I'm getting cuffed, being put into the car. They put us in separate cars and we make our way to Hammond Road. And I remember just sitting in the car like, what the heck? Like, do you not understand? Like, what the heck? Like, the order has not been followed. Nothing has ever been followed. And here this is so wrong. And so we get to the station, and I do have to insert a funny moment here because a lot of people, if you know my mom, she is very, organized, on top of things. And she always expects, if you're going to have something with you, it needs to be clean and in order. And we get to the police station, and it's 2 police, and my mom and I were in this room, and they're like, okay, you got to empty everything. You got to get rid of all your stuff and give it to us. And so my mom just starts pulling out like a wad of tissue here, and, some old peppermint here, and a piece of candy there, and like 2 wallets. And, it's just like, oh, and a receipt from Walmart and a receipt from here. And it's just like all like, it's just all on the table. And, the police, everybody's laughing. And I think, and I didn't understand, but I believe that my mom, because she had worked with law and paperwork and things of that nature, her understanding was, hey, we're coming here, we're getting booked, and we're rolling out, we're bailing out. So my mom and I, we get our glamour shots, and they take our 1 finger signature, and we go in the back, and we're waiting. I don't know. I guess you could see it as like the typical Law and Order, like, sitting, waiting, and the police are doing all their stuff. And this Asian lady walks in. She walks in, and she is obviously confused, doesn't know what's going on, clearly a language barrier. And she's just, crying and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And the police are trying to ask her, hey, do you have someone to bail you out? Do you have someone to call? Is there, what, do you need, what, who do you get in contact with? And my mom was sitting there and she was watching all this, and she was realizing like they're not going to help in any way to make sure that she gets a call so that she can get out. But she was in there for shoplifting. She was an older woman. And if you work in retail, they'll tell you that it's the older women that you gotta look out for. But she was there, and my mom decided, hey, when we get out, she's gonna get out. So she asked for the lady's name and decides that when she gets out, she's gonna call in and make sure that they can bail her out. And so it's like, great, we're here, we're doing great things already. And it's time for my mom and I go to the magistrate, and the magistrate is talking to my mom. She tells my mom what her deal is, and then the magistrate comes to me and she says, this is your deal. And I'm like, all right, so when are y'all gonna go get my son? Because when I leave here, I gotta go get my son. Who's gonna help me get my son? And the magistrate looks at me and I'm like, okay, when am I going to get my son? And she's like, you have a domestic assault because you share a child. And anytime there's a domestic assault, you have to spend 48 hours in jail. I get claustrophobic when I'm on the plane and the plane goes through the clouds and the windows open. I am constantly sitting there going, okay, pilot, I need for you to get out of the clouds. Like, can we go above the cloud, below the cloud? Because I'm feeling a little tight. And that was the sense of feeling just like, I'm going to be enclosed for 48 hours. And then it was like, me? Like, you do understand, like, I have been working hard to make this work, and I have been pushing things under the rug. I have been putting things in a file. Like, and I'm the one that has to spend 48 hours in jail? So they sit my mom and I down. They actually put me in another room so that when my mom leaves, I guess they felt like we may get, crazy, but put me in another room. My mom leaves. I sit in there for a couple of minutes, and then they come and get me. They take me to, I guess, get processed. I had to strip down naked. I had to get like in this little stall, and they tell you to squat. And the reason why you have to squat is, I guess, because people bring things in that area. I don't know what you can put in that area, but I don't have anything. And they asked me to squat. They give me my orange and white outfit. And here we are walking to my cell. I did not know what to expect. I had gone to school in Philly for 4 years. I had been in New York for 2 years. So I put all of that on. I'm from Philly, I'm from New York, and I know what the deal is. I've been walking the streets. I know I used to carry a pen in my hand. So I knew like all of this, like how this, I knew, no, I did not know. I was scared as hell. And but I knew, okay, I'm gonna have to put this on. I'm gonna have to put this toughness on. I'm gonna have to put my common sense that I learned in the city. I'm gonna have to put that on. I'm gonna know how to like read people and figure this thing out. So we get to the cell, and it's shaped like a U, and it looks like a cafeteria. And most of the cells are a rectangular shape. And the officer shows me, or the guard shows me my cell, and my cell had a little bit more space. It had the rectangle, but then on the right side of it, it had like a diamond shape, like a baseball field. So I had my rectangle and my diamond shape. And I get into the cell, and I decide in that little piece of diamond shape, I'm going to worship. I'm a liturgical dancer. I know how to get through difficult situations. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to worship. I'm going to worship and dance. I'm going to wave my hands. I'm going to like move my body. In fact, I was in rehearsal for a worship team. And so I had that song in my heart. And finally I sat down on the bed. And I still don't know why I did this. I still don't know why or what my thought process was. But the wall was like right here. Nothing but wall. Cement brick. And I turn to the wall and I start worshiping to the wall. I don't know. In my mind, it was like, I guess my mind thought, if I worship and I sing to the wall, it will just go through the entire cell. It will bless the entire cell. The entire pod will be blessed. And then I turned away and I just laid down on my back. And I just cried. I sobbed. And I could not believe that I was here. Like, God, like, I am here, enclosed in a cell. It is locked. Like, what in the world? Like, do you not understand what I've been through? God, really? So it was just crying. I was just crying and sobbing and tears and just full of just like, I can't believe this. And as I was laying there, I just popped up. And I said, who is she? Who is she, God? What is her name? Who is she? Why am I here? What is her? Who is she, God? And God said, it's the woman that cries. And I was like, okay. When I had gotten in there was a woman who just continuously cried. Here I am being hard because, you know, I'm from Philly. I'm from New York. I got this. I've lived in Philly for 4 years. I've lived in New York for 4 years. I got this. But this woman just cried out in the open, at the table, walking to herself. She just cried. And so I was like, okay, all right, I got it. It's her. 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's when they wake you up to eat breakfast. I don't know why so early, but we get up, doors open, come out, time to eat. There's a lady that I've been talking to. I guess she had noticed my eating pattern. She was like, I noticed that all you do is drink orange juice. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I'll trade you your egg for my orange juice. And I was like, all right, I'll take your orange juice. So I gave her my egg. And I was like, okay, so we've got some trust building here. I need to call my family. I got this code, but I don't know how to use it. So I said to her, can you tell me how to use this code? And she looks me straight now. She says, don't ask me. You ask her over there because I'm going to steal your code. And I was like, okay, got it. No, not to ask you to help me with the code, but thanks for your honesty. So I go over to the woman who's sitting there, and I believe she was doing something else. So she was like, hey, you can ask this girl. And so I go to the girl and I say, hey, can you help me with this code? I need to call my family. And she's like, okay, I'll help you with the code, but just make sure you don't show it to nobody. I'm like, okay, fine. I got it. Don't show the code to nobody. So she goes over and she, you know, picks up the phone. She's like, put in your code. I put in my code. She's like, all right, now dial your number, dial my number. And I talked to my family. The family was there. Talked to my mom. Made sure that she knew I was okay and I was strong. Talked to my cousins. And I was like, so who's coming to see me? And my mom was like, well, the only person that can come and see you is your stepfather, because he was in law. So I'm like, oh, wonderful. So talk to my family for the rest of the time and then hang up the phone. Start having a conversation with this young lady, second girl. And she says to me, yeah, I've been here for a while. Nobody knows I'm here. I just need to call my family. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be calling nobody. So how about I call them? So I pick up the phone, use my code, don't, you know, make sure I hide my code. And I call her family and let her know, hey, she's here at Hammond Road. within an hour, they call her name and she is out of there. So I was like, oh, great. So we got her out, got the Asian lady out. And I was like, wait a second. The woman who cries. So the woman who cries, she's sitting at a table by herself. And I go to her and I say, just talking. Hey, how's it going? She's crying, so not too well. She's in jail, so not too well. And I say to her, why are you crying so much? Like, what's happening? What's going on? And apparently she took meds for like anxiety or something like that, but had taken another medication that didn't react well. And so the reaction caused her to be like under the influence. And she got pulled over and her children were in the car or in the van. And so they arrested her and then had her children taken over to their father. And she was married. And she was just in tears because my husband, he's not going to love me anymore. He's going to take the kids away. And she was just so sad about her husband and worried about her husband. And then she says something about her father. And her father was a minister. And she's like, oh my God, my dad, he's not going to love me anymore. He's not going to love me anymore. And I'm worthless. And she just kept talking about, oh my gosh, like I'm the worst person. There's just nothing I do right. And I'm always doing things wrong. And she just kept going and crying. And then she was just like, husband, her father. And then it was, oh my God, God doesn't love me. He doesn't love me. He hates me. I've done so much wrong. How could he love me? And I was just like, wait a second. Like we've gone from the husband, from the dad to God. And so I was fresh into my understanding of God at that time, like the reality of God. And so I was like, yes. So I said to her, do you love your children? And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, I do. Like, that's bringing up this emotion again of like, I'm, my children, I'm in here and I can't be next to my children. She's like, I love my children. Like, and I was like, would you do anything for them? And she was like, yes. And I was like, do they do wrong things? They do bad things? She's like, yes, they do bad things. They do bad things all the time. And da-da-da. And I was like, but you still love them. She's like, yes. And I was like, and you would still give them Christmas and the tooth fairy and the Easter, like all of this, like you would still give them gifts. And she was like, yes. And I was like, that's how our Father is. He still loves you. Like he is still going to give you gifts. He still wants a future for you. Like even when you've done all these bad things, like he still loves you and still wants to give you gifts and still wants a future for you. And I mean, it was like a layer had lifted. And she was just kind of like, well, can you pray for me? And I was like, well, I mean, yes, I can pray for you, but I was like, but you can pray for yourself. And she was like, I can't pray for myself. Like somebody else has to pray. Like, just get into this whole, like, I'm not worthy enough to pray. And I was like, well, when Jesus left, one of the things that he told his disciples is that I have to leave because you're going to do greater things than me. So I have to leave so you can do these greater things. And that's like one of those greater things is that we have the power to come boldly before God. We have the power to intercede for ourselves and for others. I was like, you can sit on the toilet and pray if you need to. And she was just like, yeah. And as she was sitting there, I noticed that some other ladies had come around the table. And I'm pretty sure there was something very boring on TV, but they were acting like the TV was the most interesting thing at the time. But I knew that they had been, filing in to listen to this conversation. It comes time for me to go and see the judge and go before the prosecutors and all of that. They thought I had 4 charges. I only had 2. That was resolved. And I found out that I was going to be able to go home that Friday afternoon. And so that Friday afternoon, I was like, oh, we're good. We're going home. It's about to be on. And I was so grateful that the judges came in a Friday after Thanksgiving. So grateful. And, or otherwise I would have to stay there the whole weekend until Monday. But I come out and I'm ready, going home. And all of a sudden it's just like, oh no. One lady, she comes, she says, so what, where do you work? And I said, I work for an insurance company. And she's like, no, where do you work? And I was like, oh, no. Like, I work full time for an insurance company. And she was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to have my baby so I can have Obamacare. And I was like, what? I was like, no, like, that's not what you're going to do. You're not having a baby to have Obamacare. And you're not having Obamacare to have a baby. Like, what are your future? What's your goals? Like, what do you want to do in life? And so I'm like pouring into this lady, like, you can do better. And then there was another woman who was pregnant, about to have her baby. And the guard was like, oh, you're going to be back here after you have that baby. And I was like, no, she ain't. She is not going to be in here. What do you want to do? What are your life goals when that baby's born? Like, what are you going to do to like get out of the situation that brought you here and that brings you here several times for this freaking guard to tell you that you're going to be in here after you have this baby? And so I, just talking to people. And then finally, I'm talking to the lady that's crying or had been crying. And I share with her, I'm like, hey, here's my number. Like, we're just talking and everything. And finally, I hear my name, Wallace. And I'm talking to the lady, and he calls my name. And I go, one moment. And then I'm like, so this is what we're going to do. This is the process. And I'm like, here's my number. And don't you dare give it to anybody else in here because I don't want anybody else calling me and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you can stay in here if you want to. And I was just like, oh, no, like I'm ready to go. And so I get up and I go with him and he hands me off to the other guard. And the other guard, she's walking me down. And I'm still have my hands behind my back, walking towards, my exit. And I turn to her and I say, so how do I get books in here? And she's like, excuse me? I'm like, yeah, because there's only one Bible in there. There was a grandmother that was in there and she had been in there for tax evasion. And she held on to that Bible. And one time I had to ask her to borrow it. And then I gave it back to her. But I was like, there's only one Bible in here and a whole bunch of romantic novels. So I'm just thinking I need to get some Bibles in here. And she's like, okay, so yeah, you can order books, but it has to be in bulk. Just so you know, it has to be in bulk and not individual. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get me some books. I can go Amazon or, at the time Amazon wasn't big, but I was like, oh, I can order me a whole box of books and make sure that I get some Bibles in the jail cell. So I get to the end, I get my bag, I get my phone, my purse, my NYU sweatshirt that I had, and it's time to come out. And as I open the door, my mom is standing there and she's just full of relief to see me. And she just grabs me and hugs me. And it's just this feeling of like, I have my baby. She's no longer trapped in that space. And, she's safe. And I remember hugging my mom. And I just remember thinking, not a feeling like, yes, I did have a feeling of relief. But the most important feeling that I had was, I did what I was supposed to do here. Like, I have fulfilled my assignment. I have done the thing that the disciples did when Jesus was gone, when they went and when they were in the jail cell and sang, because I couldn't have done what I did if I was outside of the cell. So I was put in that place for an assignment, and I fulfilled it.
Ooh, Aya. I fulfilled the assignment. Oh, I got all kinds of notes here. What do you, how did you reconcile the fact that this was so unfair, with God, we couldn't do this another way.
Right. Right. And you know what? The thing is, it's that it was that scripture. It was that moment of realizing, like, no, there is no other way. Like, you
Mm,
have to be in
mm,
here to talk to these people.
mm,
And,
mm,
is there going to be someone like you that has this fresh, because like I said, like, I had just come into this fresh reality of who God was and what our relationship was supposed to be like with him. And would that ever be in a place around people who really like need it?
mm.
Um and I mean, even still, sometimes I hear ministries, I mean, we can be real. I hear ministries all the time that have, like, um like jail ministries where people go in and they pray, but you go in, you pray, and you leave, you know? For someone to know the truth of who God is and how he is with you, and to oh, we're going to be in here for 48 hours,
Mm, mm,
so that was how I reconciled with it. That was my moment of hey, like, you sorry, like, this is how it had to happen.
So I'll say that it's interesting that there was an older woman who was in there for tax evasion, and so she had her Bible. But what was her witness like that God had to bring you into that? And maybe she was like witnessing strong, but like you were the relevant voice that they're
Yeah.
not gonna say anything to you, but they're gonna all of a sudden just find their way over to
Like,
that table
yes.
and just yeah. Rochelle, she says domestic violence is any abusive, violent, coercive, forceful, or threatening act or word inflicted by various individuals. Like, so Shell is like breaking down the whole concept of domestic violence. And it was tragic that you were labeled the abuser. Did anything happen to your child's father in the situation?
No, no. In fact, for me, I had there was a DVO, so an order had been put on me, and I will never forget. So what a DVO is basically like, I can't be but so many feet like away from my son's father, which, sometimes, like, I couldn't even like go to games, like my son's games or stuff like that. And I do remember what after that meeting with when I got the, hey, this is what you have to do. I was sitting in with the processing officer then, and he was like, how tall is he? And he was like, and how tall are you? And I'm sitting like right there in front of him, and I'm just like, yeah,
That's
I
like some
know.
bullshit, huh? Exactly. Yeah, that's some
And he's
bull. That's
like,
some bull.
all right, well, this is what you got to do. And I was like, okay,
See?
thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Swanda said, you were in your purpose and doing God's work, even in the discomfort of jail. Amen. I will worship. And I gotta tell you, Ed, there were several things that you said that were really striking. That whole John P. Key, now I'm still mad. So I want to know if he played John P. Key for that prospect. Okay, that's like hustle. Damn it. But when you're like, okay, I sweep it under the rug,
Yeah.
keep sweeping, and then you hit that point where you're like, the brooms are broken.
The brooms are broken.
The brooms are broken. I was like, oh snap, here we go. Now, when you went off, all of that made sense. Everything made sense. What did not make sense was when you went to jail.
Yeah.
You and your mom. Like that did not make sense. But there was a comment that Reverend Camila posted when your mom was like, okay, like what's your number? Okay, when I get out, I'm gonna get you out. And so Reverend Camila said, when we get out, she's getting out. Black women all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Facts. But I'm often wondering, like, we're doing all of this, like I'm showing up for you, I'm gonna show up for you for the process. Who's showing up for us?
Yeah.
How did you feel in the midst of that? Because from hearing you tell the story, I hear you, I see you being on post. God said, "This is why you're here," and so you handle that. Did you feel the need to be supported, and you weren't, or you're like, "Okay, look, I'm strong, and I've got to deposit this in." Like, what was that like for you?
I will say, like, over time, and I've said this before, like, um, most of the support came when other people had to interact and see what was going on. And as soon as people had to interact or see what's going on or be involved in a situation, um, that's when the support would come. But outside of that, it was just this always this feeling of like, I'm doing this by myself. Um,
Yeah.
and and like I said before, it was this feeling of like, I come into this building to get help, and I can't get that help.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things that happened afterwards, because I did have a charge, well, two charges, um, was I had to, it was a civil case. It was no longer like a family thing. So I do remember when I went to court for that, they put me in a program, um, and the program, uh, I don't, because they probably still use it. I'm just going to be very,
Gotcha.
um,
Okay.
I'm gonna have to keep some things, but I remember when they told me about the program, and the judge was looking at me, and she was just smiling like peacefully at me. And I just remember thinking, why is she looking at me like that? Like, lady, like, here I am having to like say that I'm guilty for something. Um, just so it was basically like a plea. And so she's just looking at me calmly. And then I get to the program, and I guess there are men and women that go through abuse. But I was in a room full of women, and here we are in this room getting these sheets of packets that are saying these are the red flags, and these are the characteristics of abusers. And then we're watching videos, and this is how you can protect yourself and help yourself. But I'm like, a video and sheets of paper are all well and good, but like, where's the actual help? Like, are you gonna be there on Tuesday when I gotta like pick up my kid and do an exchange? Like, for the other women, like, are you gonna be there when I have to go back to my husband and he's out cheating, but I'm here and I can't do anything because I'm in this position again? Like, so there's you do have this sense of like, thank you, but
And
where's the tangible help? Like, where's the help? So yeah, that, I mean, I've felt that way for so long, Yeah.
now it feels like there was like a lancing of the bubble when you stop sweeping everything under the rug, when we have this whole big, you know, pre-Thanksgiving situation. Did it get better for you after that? Like you fulfilled the assignment, um, and now are you better because you're no longer sweeping things under the rug, or did you pick up another broom?
I if I didn't have this story, this is odd. And I'm saying it's odd because I'm like, wow, like it's a revelation for me. But if I didn't have this moment, to say that I had an assignment and that I fulfilled it, I probably would be like just in total ruins, because I held on to this. I fulfilled my assignment. Like, anytime something would happen, like before it was like sweep it on the rug, but now it's, hey, remember, like, you went through this, you're going through this because you know you have a story, you have it, like, so that has always been my thing, like, you have a story,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is what's going to hold you.
Mhm,
um
mhm.
there's someone out there that needs to hear. There's
Yes,
someone that's out here that's going through the same thing and needs to know like how you're going through it and dealing with it.
yes,
So
yes.
that has been what has helped me. It's never got better. It never
Okay.
got better.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, for anyone who is currently in the midst of the situation, I have to tell you, there's a lot of shame that's attached. And so people suffer in silence. There are a ton of brooms, ton of rugs that people are sweeping underneath. And so I'm going to say that, not everyone has to get to a breaking point. I mean, this was clearly the journey that you had to. But there are
Mhm.
resources and there are organizations that are out there that are attempting to help. I wanted to, and I did vet the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And here's their contact info. I'm going to leave it up there on the screen for a minute. And the person that I spoke with about this, she was saying that one of the things that happens is when we people start organizations and they're passionate about it, and they recognize the problem, they want to be part of the solution. And she says, and then they begin to get tied up in systems, the bigger systems that have the bigger budgets and all of their sort of convoluted ways of doing things. And then you end up having to hire the folks for whom it's just a 9 to 5. And it's not a genuine outreach for them. It's like, okay, look, this is what, here's what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you were, because I was, just for everyone in the virtual pews, I asked I was like, look, what organization can I plug? She was like,
Sorry. Sorry.
But no, but I love that. And I think that is important. I think it's important to recognize that, silence does not protect us. And we've got to figure out, like, okay, like I'll start here and see what opens up. Now, again, we decided that this was God's directive for you. Dr. Lester saying children witnessing parental violence and abuse are trauma casualties. Talk with me about how your son, after, that whole setup, like, what were the dynamics like between you and your son afterwards? Was he timid? I don't want to put, like, just how was the interactions with him after the setup?
And so he's definitely right. Very traumatic situation for him. He definitely has grown. I will say after that situation happened, actually, like a couple of days later, I was able to get him, and we were riding to the mall, and he was young at the time, middle school, I believe, and he asked me. He said, "Mom, did you wear black and white?" And I was like, no, I'm like, no, son, I wore orange and white. And so I'm like, and I told him the story. I told him the story of how Gammy helped get the Asian lady out. I told him about the lady that got out within an hour, and I told him about the woman who cries. And so he realized. Well, I don't say he realized, but I know that I shared that story with him because I wanted him to know that mommy was okay, but that God was present.
Absolutely.
And so as he's grown up, that has always been our thing. Mm-hmm. That has always been our thing.
That mommy's okay and God is present.
Mommy is okay and God is present. You are okay, son.
Yes. Yes.
And God is present. Mm-hmm. Also, learning that one of the main things I will never forget, he was, I believe he was going through a traumatic situation and, or a traumatic moment or reliving it. And I told him, I said, for everyone and not just his dad, I was like, people, are people. And there are spirits and there are bad ones. And sometimes what we do is wrong, but the people are genuinely good. And I said, so when you see these things happen, know that it's the things that are being done that are bad, but it's the people inside that are good. So take out your sword. So I remember that. I remember this. I remember it was like, take out your sword and fight the enemy. So we're like sitting there like playing like swords, fighting at the enemy, and not at the person.
Okay.
So that's how. But even now, I'll tell you, he'll tell me, you ain't having no, because I'm single now. And he's like, you ain't having no kids out of wedlock. You ain't doing that. That's what he tells me all the time. If somebody's related, if I have a brother or sister, oh, their parents are going to be together and they're going to work it out. I'm like, okay, right, got it.
Well, so here's what's interesting. Dr. Lester posted also okay to not be okay, not toxic positivity. And I wanted to be sure that you weren't telling him, oh, everything is good, just kind of ignore it. Like you were giving him a true sense of uh, the physical realm and the spiritual realm. And like that's how you were
Yes,
able to navigate this space.
yes, and our upbringing, or the spiritual the atmosphere that he was in, that was what was being taught also,
Got it.
is,
Okay.
the physical and the spiritual, and the scripture that, we wrestle not flesh and blood, but
Right.
principalities. So like that was constantly being said. I can't say, like, he went through counseling, and I remember one time he said to me, Mom, that guy's crazy. And so we had to, and we had to find someone else for him to go to. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me see. There was one more comment before I posted your let's see. Dr. Lester says children also know when all is not okay.
Oh yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
children are brilliant. Oh yeah. 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 No,
And that
it's
was one of
foolish.
the things. That was one of the things I was worried about as a mom, is like, okay, this has happened, and he's not going to be able, like, how's he going to get through this? How's he going
Mhm.
to? And people would say to me, "Oh, children are resilient," and
Resilient. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
I don't like that answer.
Yeah.
I don't like that answer at all.
Yeah.
Like,
It almost
he
feels
still
like
has to
hands
go.
off, just kind of let them form, whatever. It's like, no, no, no. We
Yeah,
gotta put our hands on the
yeah,
formation. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, this story, like I said, Aya is like one of my like it's so deep, it's so layered. And y'all, we didn't even get all of it. Like
Yeah,
there is a post.
yeah.
There's a post narrative, and Aya is
Which I can't share yet.
and she can't share yet, but like there is a lot that is happening, and Aya is going to gift us with she's putting together like this sort of a one woman show, but which is really about sort of the failures or the lapses in the system, and what it looks like for the folks who from nine to like this your 9 to 5 gig and
Mhm.
not your passion, and there's like a real need, and then how God shows up. And so, and then because A is a dancer as well, there's going to be, that whole expression. So, Dr. Lester says, Aya, thank you for your story and your truth.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
absolutely. So when there's some things that are in the works right now. You can follow Aya on Instagram at Violet Owl 3. And Aya, I just want to say thank you. Thank you
Thank
for being.
you.
Thank you for just trusting me with this story, and trusting that when I said that, like it most definitely had merit. Um, we need to do that. Dr. Lester posted very for color girls. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yep. Yep. Love it. Love it.
Can
Okay.
I say that when people would read that story, I'd go, let me give you a couple of pages.
You're like, okay, look here, just so
So
you
many.
know. Miss Wanda says, excited for your show, Aya. Yes,
Dang it, Miss
yes.
Wanda.
Big things are on the horizon. Okay, sis, so I'm gonna put you backstage. Don't leave me though. Just put you
Okay.
backstage. Y'all, I told you. I told you this was gonna be one of them deep ones. Okay, so just quickly we're gonna go through the before we dismiss. There are 4 things that we do: Jesus, jazz, and dessert wine. The first is we offer a public lament. Now, because we've been talking about domestic violence, abuse, and Aya's story was not it was about the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse. But on the other side of that, it was like, okay, and God is present, and God is directing this. I lament, I offer a public lament for a nonlinear journey. I offer a public lament for how abuse is a part of our current context, and that there are people who are doing things that feel like it is okay for them to do this and they can get away with it. And, it's on the other person to just pray about it or to let it go or whatever. I lament that. But here's my prophetic hope. My prophetic hope is that you are here and you have heard this information. And if you are in any way in contact with someone who has who is battling, who is dealing with the situation. Um, I trust that you are going to show up in whatever way feels real or right for you. I posted a comment that Cindy Love posted about how she counsels domestic violence victims. Like, yeah. Rochelle has been posting statistics. Yeah. Rochelle actually has an organization that or initiative that she's putting together. And I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago through Austin Police Department. So it's going to start with Austin Police Department, but it's going to go national and it's going to go international. She is very much doing the work. God is present. God is present. And so I am not in any way wanting anyone to have abuse or anyone to have to go to jail for their assignment. But I do advocate for you to not sweep under the rug, for you to bring out the Christinas, to throw away the brooms, because in that space you're going to be led for the deliverance and the liberation of so many other folk. I am hopeful this day that we are dismantling systems that we're going to we're going to construct we're going to enact new paradigms and new systems that are really going to do the work. And then it's going to get better and better. Aya mentioned, Jesus said, greater works will you do. Yeah. So it started with this hotline, and now it's going to be houses. It's going to be bigger houses, and then it's going to be a change in the way that we see abuse, the way that we handle, like we're going to do these laws. So greater works will you do. It's getting greater and greater at every level. I need for you to just plug in whatever way feels really right for you. Trust that God is going to put all of us on assignment. It is awesome, awesome. Now, my energizing memory. Here's what's interesting. Let's say, okay, I just got another deal here, nomore.org. Okay, hey, I saw that. Thank you. So here's my energizing memory. After I stopped playing, when recess was over, and I got serious about my education and completing being the first one in my family to go to college, it was a blessing for me to know that I didn't have to hide that I had had this whole crazy journey in college. My energizing memory is that bullshit happened. It did not stop me from what it was that I was going to ultimately do and become. In fact, the reason why I am able to speak so openly about where I have been and then train, coach, curate, and direct others to do the same is because that thing happened, and it didn't take me. It made me stronger. It made me more aware. It made me kinder. It made me more empathetic. So my energizing memory is actually the story of being in the dean of students office and recognizing and looking back all those years later and seeing the many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. Grace will lead me home. That is my energizing memory. Finally, giving. Last week we talked about giving what you can. And I'm going to stress that again this week. When we are dismantling systems, when we are showing up in spaces and we're trying to do our part to enact change, do what you can, give what you can. Give time, give your talent, give your story, give your voice, give your research, give your money, give room for respite. Whatever it is that you can do, just plug in somehow. There is, if all of us do a little bit, then we can cover so much more ground. Give what you can, show up in the space that's really right for you. You don't have to go hunt it, but whatever's just right there in front, I am encouraging you to give what you can. All right, let me go to the virtual pews real quick. Last comment, Rochelle says we must cultivate a culture of intolerance to violence. Hashtag solutions. Hashtag solutions. That's a part of the greater works, I believe, that Jesus was speaking of that we'll do. We're always thinking, oh, well, if Jesus, healed the leper, well, we forget that there are lepers right now that are amongst us. These are people who are standing on the outsides of our community because they are battling shame or because we have shunned them or for whatever reason. So greater works we will do. Part of that greater work, we must cultivate a culture of intolerance to violence. I absolutely love it. Okay, so next week, and I just realized that let me pull this one up real quick. Next week, I am super excited about this particular person. I want you to see his picture. I want to say something about him real quick. I coached the next part, the storyteller that's coming up for next week. I coached him when he was prepping for this. All right. He was prepping for his vitiligo awareness campaign. Vitiligo month it's every June, and so he had this whole big campaign, vitiligo. And when I first met him, I thought, okay, he's just a light skinned guy like that, you know. What I didn't know was that he has a skin condition, vitiligo, and he is experiencing universal vitiligo, where he lost all of his pigmentation. And he's going to tell a very powerful story about what it was like to be a man in makeup, and then what happened, the situation that led to him taking off his makeup. Terrell's story is it's powerful. It is powerful, as are all of the stories that we have and that we feature on Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine. So next week, 5:30, I want you to show back up in the virtual pews, and you're going to hear about the man who no longer wore makeup. With that, our blessing and our sending. In the virtual pews right now, I know that you are a very loving and a very learned group. And I am grateful that you go out into the world and you are doing amazing things and you're showing up, you're doing the work. I pray that the grace of God marks your steps, that you are given everything you need to show up in the world, to give what you can, to be in the space, whatever it is that you need to be, to take care of yourself, to see the signs, and to know that if you happen to be in that, dealing with that situation right now, you are not alone. As much as I don't like hard assignments, I am grateful for stories like what we heard today that shows that indeed the name of God, Jehovah Shammah, the Lord goes ahead of us and prepares the way for us. I pray that this week you experience God's goodness and grace and bountiful blessings in every way, but above all, that you know that God is good, but even more than that, God is present. May that anchor your soul and give you all kinds of sweet peace as you show up in the world and continue to do amazing things. Ashe, Selah, so be it. I'll see you next week. Blessings, fam.
My funny Valentine, sweet Comet Valentine.